If you've never seen Lauren before,
Here I am.
Lauren, what is my opinion on, just kidding, kind of. We're kind of like an old couple, so we don't party, we don't drink a whole lot. Today is a special episode because I'm joined by my amazing girlfriend, Lauren, who is going to actually be interviewing me with your guys' questions. So if you follow me on Instagram or you follow me on Facebook, I put up a post a few days ago and said, hey, if you could ask me any questions, what questions would those be? And then I was going to answer them. And then I asked Lauren if she wants to ask me and have a conversation about it. So here she is. So welcome to the very 800 episodes until you finally got onto the podcast.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Good. I can't believe it's taken me this long.
Well, it wasn't something you would have been into, I don't think, too long ago. I feel like it's something that you've started to get interested in.
Yeah. I guess just more open to it.
Yeah.
I never really just even thought about it before.
Yeah. So I'm excited because you're going to ask their questions and I'm going to ask for your feedback as well. So it's not just going to be me speaking. So should we just dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So ask me whichever questions you want and then let's dive in.
All right. So should I say the name of the person? Should we call them out or not? Like,
I mean, if you could pronounce it. I mean, there's no calling out. They're asking a question. So I don't think it's not like we're saying something bad about them.
Okay. I'm going to say this first name. I think it's Corinne. And she wants to know how to find friends that are supportive or aspiring for growth. Often we get advice to cut off friends who bring us down, but no one tells you where to find like-minded people with whom you can grow together.
That's good. So I would say over the past few years, our friend group has changed quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I think so.
From when we first started dating, it's actually a lot different because we don't really party like we used to. We're kind of like an old couple. So we don't party. We don't drink a whole lot. We don't eat meat. We don't eat gluten. I mean, alcohol, gluten, and meat pretty much cut out almost everything you could do in Austin. And then COVID cuts out all of the rest of it. So the first thing that I would say is meetup.com helps a lot. And then meetup.com is to find anything that you have interest in. Volleyball, if you want to see if there's any people that are in your city that play volleyball, or, backgammon, if you want to play cards with people, if you want to, sell stuff on the internet, there's always a group of people in your city, if it's a decent sized city, that have a meetup. So if you go to meetup.com, I think you have to sign up as a member. I'm pretty sure it's free though. And you go to meetup.com, you sign up with them, and then put in whatever it is and start going to networking events. You and I both hate networking events, but we've still forced ourselves to go to them because you meet some pretty good people. Yep. You meet a lot of really weird people as well that just want to hand you the business cards and they want to get business from you for something. But I would say a lot of our friends, if you think about people we could go down the line, a lot of them came from me going to a lot of networking events, meeting people, and then having coffee with a whole bunch of people. And eventually you find 4 or 5 people that are awesome. You hang out with them and then they have friends that are awesome as well.
Yeah. I
would say that's probably the easiest way to do it. What's your opinion of how have you met people, or how have you seen me meet people since, starting the podcast 5 years ago? Because our friends group has changed from people who used to party a lot to now people who are quite spiritual and also successful entrepreneurs at the same time. So what is your advice in there?
I think that part of this, and it might be cliche, but they talk about you need to be who you want to meet. So if you're fully become the person that you essentially want to attract, that's helpful, because you're just going to naturally start to attract the people that you want to be with. And it just happens naturally too. I mean, you do need to put yourself out there, obviously, because you're not going to just meet anybody naturally sitting at home, which I know right now it's kind of hard. But I mean, when we can get out there, and even like you said, having those conversations online and stuff, I think putting yourself out there is important. You have to network. Yeah.
It's not fun. It's pretty awkward. And you're more of an extrovert than I am.
Yeah.
Lauren's definitely more of an extrovert than I am. I prefer to just hang out at home a lot. She likes to get out a little bit more, but you got to force yourself to go out and meet people. Because in reality, it's the old cliches are usually cliches because they're true.
For a reason, yeah.
And that cliche is, it's not what you know, it's who you know, is 100% true. If we think about a lot of places that we went and people we've hung out with and things that we've gotten or stuff we may have gotten opportunities to, it was always because we knew somebody. And so if it's worth it to you to change your network, you're going to have to get your ass up and start finding people.
Yeah. I learned that in college, I think, because this is gonna make me sound like a sorority girl, but I mean, I was. And one part of the reason why I joined it was because of the value in meeting people. And in college, that was a great opportunity to meet people and make connections. I got some of my first jobs because of my sorority sisters and the people that we knew. So I figured that out right out the gates, that you just need to put yourself out there and meet people.
100%. There's no secret to it.
No.
Cool. What else we got?
All right. So the next question is, what would your best advice be to somebody who wants to quit their job and follow their passion?
What do you think my advice would be, Lauren? You've heard me say this a lot. You've heard me talk about this much more than the average person.
Just do it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Now.
Just do it.
Jump. Just make the jump. Like, you'll figure it out as you go, but definitely don't waste your time.
I would say close. Just do it was exactly what I was thinking. But before you do it, make sure you have enough money. Because you need to live. My most viral video that I have is called why your job's a waste of your life. And it talks about why, if you hate your job, you should quit it. Yep. But one of the things that I think people really need to realize is don't just quit it tomorrow unless you are financially able to pay your bills, because you're not going to make a whole lot of money in the next 3 months of a brand new business. It takes time, 3 months, 6 months, a year sometimes, to make money at a business, depending on what that business is. But you don't want to quit your job where you are stable at least, and then go and do something and be stressed out about money right away. So what I would recommend is quit your job when you feel like you have a certain amount saved up. So you might say, when I get to $10,000 saved, I'll do it. And I need to get to $10,000 by the end of this year. Like, set an actual money goal, set a deadline of when it's going to happen, and then leave in that time. So don't just say, I want to leave my job when I get to, $10,000. No, like, give yourself a deadline of when you're going to leave the job that you don't want to be at anymore, so that you can leave. But also what I would say is, figure out exactly what it is that you want to do. And whenever you come home, put every ounce of energy into it. So you can work from 9 to 5, and then from, 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock, you can literally just go at it. And if you have kids, maybe put the kids to bed at 8:30, and from 8:30 until 1 a.m., you're working on your side business. And I would say either when you have enough money saved, or when your side business is paying your bills, is able to pay your bills. If your bills are $3,000 and you're making $3,000 a month and you feel comfortable, well, now you can go ahead and leave, because that 40 or 50 hours you're spending at work, imagine if you put that into your new job. So how much I hate the rat race, and how much I hate normal society and the stuff that we've been taught. So what is, I'm curious with you, what is your perception of my perspective of what I say to people, and the way that I live my life, but also the way that I talk to people? We have friends that, I want to quit my job and I want to do this. So what is your perspective of my perception? Your perception of my perspective, I think, is what I said.
I know what you mean.
What I say to people, in advice maybe I've given before too.
I think it's obviously shifted. This has been a bigger message that you've shared after I took that leap. So it always resonated with me, because I knew that you just have to make that jump,
right,
and commit to it. Before that, though, it would have seemed like completely out there, and I was in a place where I felt like I had worked really hard to be where I was in my career, and so leaving that behind felt like I was truly leaving something, a part of me behind that I'd worked so hard for. But now that I'm on the other side of it, it was just part of my journey, and it was totally necessary for me to have all of those jobs and meet all of those people and all those opportunities. But I think it's a great perspective, because as much as I appreciate all those experiences, I would never turn back.
Right.
Because I've gained so much as an individual, and I've learned so much, and have so much more confidence. And I mean, just the personal growth that I've gotten from making that jump was huge. And then,
so to be clear, you used to work for a company up until 3 years ago,
right,
when we decided we wanted to go travel.
Yes.
So you worked for a social media company, and you worked for some, helped with marketing, but then you also worked for, you worked for basically agencies and stuff like that, advertising agencies. And you know, by the time that you had left, you were making $65,000 a year as a single woman, which is a lot of money to the average person in America. That's, you know, the average dual income house makes about $60,000 in America. So you were making more than that. Obviously taxes were then taken out of it.
Yeah.
And leaving scared the crap out of you.
Oh, for sure.
But you had to, if we were going to go travel the world for 6 months, which is what we did.
Yeah, which was setting that deadline and like that goal.
Right.
Like it had to be done.
Right. And I helped push in that.
Yeah, a lot.
Which is good.
I needed that push, but it was exactly what I needed. It was great. And I like literally would never turn around now.
Right. Like you could never go back to working.
No, I have nightmares. I literally was telling a friend this the other night. I have like nightmares that somebody tells me I have to go and sit in an office.
Really?
And it's horrible. I just couldn't.
No, there's no way. There's no way you can, it's like I told you, once you get outside of the bubble of working for someone else, you're like, I can never do that again. And here's the thing, you're making way more than you were right now.
Oh yeah.
Working for yourself, traveling, you know, we're about to leave 2 days from now to go to Florida for a month.
Yeah.
That would have never been an opportunity in the past.
I know. That's
crazy. You make more money doing it, which is what's awesome. But you have to get to the point where you're just like, you got to burn the ships. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
There's no other option.
A lot of people too were like, you know, if I could just match my salary, that would be great. And I remember thinking the same thing. You know, if I'm able to at least just match my salary, I'll be happy. And the amount of time it took me, I mean, I matched my salary within a year.
Yeah.
And that was while we were also traveling, you know, all around the world for 6 months of that, you know. So if I would have cut out the 6 months of traveling and been literally just heads down, I could have for sure matched my salary in less time than that. And then after that, it just grew exponentially, not, you know, waiting for anybody to give me a raise or any of that stuff. It was just purely because I decided I wanted to make more money. How did I need to pivot? What did I need to do on my own? So, yeah.
Love it. You can never go back. What else we got?
Let's see.
The moral of the story, to answer it, is just do it. Figure out a way to make it happen.
Oh, 100%.
Give yourself a deadline. Figure out how much money you need to be making or how much money you need to have saved. Just do it.
Yep. All right. So what would you say to a 20-year-old college student looking to become self-dependent for income and fulfillment?
Drop out of college. Just kidding, kind of. Depends on what you do. Drop out of college or don't drop out of college. If it's a specialized thing, then don't drop out of college. If it's something like business administration, which is what I was doing, just drop out and do something that has to do with business is what I would say. But I would say the other thing that I would say is work for Cutco, because Cutco really helped me out at 20 years old as well. Because I was making more selling knives than my teachers were that were teaching me. Which was a cool thing. And that was my first experience of being an entrepreneur, because I was able to run my office. I was able to be in charge of my income. You know, it was basically 100% commission. So I was in charge of how much money I made. But, you know, I went from delivering pizzas to people's houses and making like $17,000 a year to within 18 months making $177,000 working for them. So it could be Cutco, it could be selling solar, it could be something, any form of sales is what I would recommend. If somebody can get into sales, there's a reason why they say salespeople are never out of a job, is because every company always needs a great salesperson. So if somebody can get really good at sales at 20 years old, they're set. I would also say that starting your own business, sales is absolutely 100% necessary. So it's the foundation of your own business. You know, even for you, you're not really like picking up the phone and cold calling people or anything like that, but there are sales tactics that are when you're presenting a quote to somebody that you have to go over. So at 20 years old, I would say if you're passionate about what you're doing, stay in school. If you're trying to figure out what you're doing, I am of the belief that school is not the place to figure it out. I think the real world is the place to figure it out. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, go to college and figure it out. Bullshit. Take that exact amount of money and go to every single conference that you possibly can for a year that interests you, pay half the amount of money, meet people who are already making $500,000 a year selling widgets online. And you're like, fuck college. I could sell widgets online and make 10 times the amount of the average American, whatever it is. Go to a conference that interests you, meet people who are in that industry. That's where I would want to meet people. I wouldn't want to go and meet other people who are also broke college students like myself. Right. So if I were to go back at 20 years old, I would still sell Cutco, which is, you know, I sold knives in people's houses. What I would do is I actually would have dropped out of college sooner and taken all the money that I was putting into college, and I would have gone to as many events as possible. I would have gone to, online events. I would have gone to sales events. I would have gone to, music events, not music like go and see someone perform live, but go and figure out the music industry and meet people who work for Fender or Gibson and all of those and figure out what I wanted to do. Because once again, it goes back to who you know, not what you know. And if you know a lot of people that are in those industries and you meet somebody at 20 years old that's 35 years old making $250,000 a year selling widgets online, and they want to mentor you just because they like you and they see something in you, you're going to be 10 times more successful, 10 times faster. So that would be my quick tip. What about you? What would you say?
Well, the second part to that was not just income, but fulfillment. So that I think kind of also can, what if sales isn't
for sure
fulfilling for them?
Sales is not easy. Sales sucks. That's why it pays a lot. So that's the first thing. I don't know if it's fulfilling, but it does teach you a lot.
Yeah.
Teach you a lot about communication, teaches you a lot about persuasion, teaches you a lot about, how to run a business. Because if you're a salesperson, you're a business, running your own business inside of a business. But going to fulfillment, yeah, you should be doing something that you want to do, and there's a lot of people that go to college because their parents tell them they should go to college, and they're in a degree, trying to get a degree that they don't even truly want, because one of two things a lot of times. Number one, they know they can make a lot of money doing it. And if you ever just go after money, you're not going to love what you do. Or number two, their parents are telling them that they should do that. Right. And so if you are in that situation, I would say it's better off that you figure out what you're actually passionate about. Take a year off if you need to. Like, so my mom said something to me when she basically helped me drop out of college. She kind of talked me into it. She goes, well, school is always going to be there. Like, you can go back next year if you want.
It's true.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. So let me drop out. My mom helped me drop out, which was kind of one of the cool things. But she said, school will always be there. You can always go back. And so if you take a year off and just discover who you are, or save up and go travel, a lot of people figure out what they want to do when they're traveling. I would have never moved to Austin had I never gone and traveled back, quit my job, backpacked for 3 months, gone around the world, and then come here and then meet people that kind of sparked the idea of, oh, I should do some stuff online. So it's kind of like the dots connected because of all of that. So maybe traveling is part of it. Do something that you truly want to do. Figure out how to edit videos and put them on YouTube. Make a podcast.
Just start trying things. I think that's it.
Right. Just try things.
If you don't know what brings you fulfillment.
100%.
But you probably do know. You might just think that you can't make money doing it. Right? But people make money in the craziest ways.
I mean, I make money in a crazy way if you think about it. Right? Like, when I first started this podcast, would you ever have thought it got to this point?
Well, yeah.
Really?
Because I
when I was inside of my room rented, I started this podcast in my bedroom, rented in a bedroom of a room that I rented from my friend inside of his house. Yeah. With this microphone. And now I just have another one. So you're using it. So you thought that you thought that it could have been to this point?
I thought it was possible. Did I think it was 100% for sure going to happen? I mean, I don't think that I really had any expectations around it. I just knew it was something you wanted to do. So I was like, yeah, go for it. But, I'm not surprised, just because I guess for me, like, I've seen how hard you've worked for so long. And, I've seen the dedication, and so it's not surprising to me at all.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
All right. Are we moving on to the next?
Yeah, let's see what else we got.
All right. So what are some other personal development podcasts you recommend?
Lauren, what's the only other podcast that I ever listen to?
Joe Rogan?
Well, we listen to Joe Rogan sometimes. But what do I listen to?
That's my answer, because that's my
you listen to Joe Rogan a lot.
Podcast.
We listen to Joe Rogan clips. We don't actually listen to his entire
the
episodes.
whole thing.
What do I listen to?
Ram Dass.
That's it.
Yeah.
So give everybody the breakdown of how our morning usually goes, at least the first. When you come I usually wake up first. You come downstairs. You have Toby in your hands because Toby sleeps next to you. Yeah,
so Toby and I come downstairs to find you listening to Ram Dass already. You lay out the blanket to camouflage your lap so that Toby doesn't think that you're you, but you're just like a nice little fluffy bed, because otherwise he won't lay with you. Tea. And just listening to Ram Dass.
That's it. So I don't listen to, it's funny because as somebody who has a podcast, I don't listen to a whole lot of podcasts.
No.
I only listen to Ram Dass because I guess I don't want to say like because it's definitely not true. I've learned everything with personal development, but I've been in it for so long. I feel like and I've made 800 episodes. Like I already know what someone's going to say, or I have a pretty good idea of what they're talking about. So I'm not really into personal development or business podcasts. What I'm into at this point is spirituality and learning more about it. And Ram Dass is just the person for me because Ram Dass is extremely analytical because he was a Harvard professor. And then he was kicked out of Harvard for, giving LSD to his students back in the 60s. And then he went on this crazy spiritual route. So he can be very spiritual, but also very analytical and kind of ties it together. He's not everyone's cup of tea, but he's got 175 episodes. I started listening to him like 6 months ago and I've done every single one of them. So for me, it's just what I listen to in the morning because it kind of sets my mind right to, thinking that there's more out there than just going and being successful and making money and running a business. Yeah. But more of being connected to all that there is. So that's it for me. We listen to Joe Rogan clips sometimes. Sometimes if we're on a long drive, we'll listen to Joe Rogan, but more than anything else, it's Ram Dass and Ram Dass only.
Yeah, Ram Dass on a daily basis for sure.
Ram Dass Here and Now is what it's called. And so that's what I listen to.
Yeah, he's great. He also keeps it real. Like he's not trying to, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you feel like, spiritual teachers can be so, I don't know, like not as relatable in some cases, but that's not the deal with Ram Dass at all. And
yeah,
that's
he'll
what's
cuss.
also really good about it. For me personally, I'm sure that's an appeal for you.
Whenever he talks about his dad, sometimes he says he has a shit-eating grin. Like he keeps it real in that way where you're like, oh, he isn't too out there.
Right.
Most of the time. He can get out there though. What else we got?
All right. So they said, I'm having trouble with procrastination since the beginning of the pandemic. I used to be an active person, but these days I guess they're not from America, but I'm wrecked to do everything. Sounds awkward coming from me. I'm sure it sounds better with an accent. What would you do to become an active person again?
What do you think? Let's go for you first. What tips would you give somebody to be active again?
I think it would be kind of about coming up with a plan. So right now they're in a pattern because everything got crazy and there's just a shift. And so now they're in that loop. But if they decided I want to do X, Y, and Z, and they came up with a daily plan on how to fit that into their schedule and maybe have like an accountability buddy to like say, hey, we're going to, I need you to be somebody who reminds me or holds me accountable to getting this done, and then just keep knocking it out daily. Yeah.
They probably don't have a plan. They probably aren't good at time management. Those are the two things I can think of. And they probably don't have a why behind why they want to do it. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're slacking in your routines, you're slacking in your everything, literally your business, your finances, your relationships, your being a parent. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And if something really matters to you, you'll get it done, right? Like you'll always get it done 100%. If I were to tell everybody here that they had to do X, Y, Z, or everybody that they love dies by tomorrow, they'll get whatever X, Y, Z is done. They'll figure out a way to get it done. Right. And the reason why is because there's just enough importance behind it. So if you feel like you're stuck and you're not doing what you need to do, main reason why probably is because you don't have a strong enough why. You don't know the reason. So if you're like, oh, my body's gone to shit since COVID hit, well, you probably don't care enough about your body. And you need to think to yourself, well, why is it worth for me to take time out of my day to work on my body? Right? If your reading has gone to shit, well, it's probably because the same thing. You don't care enough about your reading. So what would your life look like if you read every single day for the next 5 years? Where would you be 5 years from today? And start thinking about that, and then your why becomes stronger. If you're, if we're going back to the body, if you're overweight and you're trying to lose weight, well, don't think about you losing weight, but think about the fact that you're trying to stay around to walk your daughter down the aisle, right? Like that type of stuff is what motivates people. So if someone's sitting around and they're completely unmotivated, they don't have anything that motivates them, they need to, number one, figure out their why. What is your why behind the thing that you want to do? Number two, you need to come up with a plan. Number three, you just got to freaking execute, right? And the way that you execute is when you don't feel good, What I always say is inaction causes more inaction. If you're sitting on the couch scrolling on Instagram, you're not going to get up. It's harder to get up when you're scrolling on Instagram than it is if you're already up and moving. Action creates more action. Inaction creates inaction. So if you're laying on the couch trying to get motivated, just get up and do 15 push-ups, do 50 jumping jacks, go for a run around the block, even though you don't want to move your freaking feet. And when your heart rate gets up and your blood starts pumping, you start to get endorphins in your body. Well, then that little bit of action creates more action. Mm-hmm. The worst thing that you could do is sit on the couch and just keep thinking, because thinking has never gotten anybody anywhere. Thinking with some action has gotten people to where they need to go. So I would just say, have a why, develop a plan, take action.
Yep. I agree.
You concur.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so Scotty wants to know, when should I know when to cut someone out of my life, and how do I do that properly?
So, if you're already thinking that you want to cut someone out of your life, they probably already should be out of your life. Mm-hmm. There's a pretty good chance. This is tricky because it depends on who the person is. If they're in your family, it's not very easy to cut someone out of your family. Now, it is possible to cut somebody out. I made an episode, I made a video about toxic people not too long ago, in how if somebody's toxic, they should be gone. They should be out of your life. And if they talk down to you, if they make you feel bad about yourself, if they disturb your peace, if they try to hold you down, if they make you, feel like worse of a person, whatever it is, they need to be gone. Like, they're just not worth your time. Now, what if that's one of your parents? What if that's your sister? What if that's your aunt or uncle? That makes it a little bit harder. But I said, if somebody brings you down enough to the point where they're messing up your future and your present, you have to figure out if they're worth staying in your life or not. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are like, but my mom did XYZ for me. She did this. And I understand and I get it. But at the same time, just because that doesn't mean you deserve to live a life of misery with someone who makes you feel like shit. Like, there's no reason to be around someone who makes you feel like shit. Once you turn 18, 20 years old, you can get people out of your life that don't serve you anymore. And that's the fact of the matter. Now, do you want to? That's up to you. Mm-hmm. And when I put that out there, a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, but that's stupid. Don't ever tell people to not talk to their dad again or not talk to their mom. If you saw some of the messages that I've gotten from people of what their parents have done or do to them currently, you'd be disgusted with people. You'd be like, they should absolutely 100% not talk to that person ever again. The things that people have been through, the physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse that people have been to. And you're telling me that they should just continue to put themselves through that? Because here's the deal. If they have trauma from the past from that person, that trauma is still living in them every moment that they see them, and every moment that their subconscious takes over and they're just sitting around doing nothing. So if your life is worth it to you, at some point in time, you have to go, all right, this person might need to go. And how to get rid of them? You don't have to get rid of people right away, but you can slowly start to get people out of your life. It's possible. You don't have to get people out of your life 100%, but if someone's in your life 95% right now, can you go to 90? And then can you go to 85? And then 80, 75, 60, 50, and then get them down to 5 or 10? Your life is just going to be so much easier when you open it up. Now you have more time for people like we started off the episode, who inspire you, who bring you up, who talk amazing about you, who say good things, who make you feel better about yourself. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, when you have that confidence coming from the people that you surround yourself with, then you can go out and do whatever it is that you want to in the world. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. I feel like part of it is that, your happiness is your responsibility. Mm-hmm. And so you have to fully take responsibility of owning what you allow in your life. And also, I'm going to sound a little woo-woo-y, but you have to protect your energy. Mm-hmm. And, if it's a matter of someone that you can't, just remove from your life 100%, start to set boundaries for yourself and become familiar with what that looks like. Mm-hmm. And how you can, keep boundaries in place to protect your energy, because, that's going to be really important too.
For sure. Set boundaries. If you're going to stay around somebody, at least figure out what the boundaries are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. And if you guys want to see this, if you guys want to see me and Lauren talking and you're listening on the podcast, you can always go to my YouTube and you can look at the video that will be uploaded so you can see both of us. If you've never seen Lauren before,
here I am.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor and hit that like button down below. It helps with the YouTube algorithm so that more people can see this message because it helps us get it out organically. So hit that like button and I appreciate you.
All right.
What do we got?
Did you ever face any challenges when it came to trying to communicate effectively with other people, be it personally or professionally? If so, how/what did you do to overcome those challenges? P.S. I gained so much valuable insight from your podcast. They have helped me so much. Thank you for doing what you do.
How sweet.
Oh.
Lauren, what is my opinion on being professional and and professionalism and emails and speaking professional, all that stuff?
I don't think you really want that much to do with it.
So why do you, I agree. Why do you?
Oh,
do
you
that?
don't like you're not into writing emails, especially like the "Hi Nancy, hope you had a great weekend.
Nope, not me.
How's the fam?" Like any of the small talk, that's just definitely not gonna happen.
No.
An email is just like if you write an email, it's gonna be straight to the point, just
One
basic
line.
info. Yeah, no frilly, nothing. I mean, I think that with you, you're just very like much yourself, which is good because obviously you're authentic, but it tends to be like blatant and just like direct and to the point. Yeah, I think you just get the real Rob all the time.
Yeah, I would say that it's just, I've never Lauren took communications in college, graduated from college in communications. She did PR and she did this stuff. So she knows like how to write the perfect emails and all this stuff. And I remember for a while you would see what I would do and you'd be like, that's not a good email. Like you've got to.
I was helping you write emails
at
one point, wasn't I?
I know you were, because I was like, does this sound right? Because I don't even care to put the time into being fake, because I just don't like. And that's one of the things that people say, like if they're listen to my podcast or they meet me in person or they see my videos or they're inside of one of my courses, they're like, you're literally the same person all the time. And that's just because I just don't see any reason to be somebody else. So the best tip I would give somebody is if you got to be professional, but don't ever not be yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I would say, because there's a lot of people that are in business that are there's a lot of people that are in my business that you could literally, that are in personal development or podcasting, and you could, the mic turns on and there's somebody else, turns off and they're a completely different person. And you've met people and you're like, who the hell? Like, how is that person?
I don't enjoy that.
Yeah. And so for me, it's just like, I don't care about constructs enough, human constructs made up by people that are no smarter than you and I, and dealing with them enough to change who I am. So for me, I'm going to give the answer that nobody really was expecting or wanted to hear. I don't really care to be business professional too often. Like, is there times? Yes, there is some times and stuff, but I think that one of the things that people really do though is they give up part of themselves to be what everyone else wants them to be. And that's in business, but it's also in like normal life. People just, they aren't fully 100% authentic to who they are. And then 10 years down the road, they don't even know who they are anymore because they've been somebody else for other people because they care about other people's perceptions and judgments of them too much. And I think if you start to go down that road, it can get pretty hairy, where you start to lose yourself because you're trying to be someone else for other people. And, in my opinion, I might be the worst texter and emailer in the world, but it's just because I just don't care to be that way. And that's the good thing about running your own business is you don't have to. Like I can hire somebody to send emails for me, right? Like you can do those. That's the other great thing about it is when you have your own business, you don't have to act a certain way. If you are in a business and you work for a company, you got to do what your boss tells you to do. So figure out whatever that is. Try to be as authentic as you can inside of that construct of a business. And, if you got to say, hope you had a great weekend before you actually get to the real freaking point of the whole email, go for it, I guess.
You know what? When I say that to people, it's because I really genuinely hope they did.
Yeah.
But I will say this. So even though that isn't part of what you do, there's the other side of professionalism in terms of like respecting people's time, and you do that.
Right.
Making sure you're providing value to the people that you're working with, never asking for something if you're not going to be able to provide value and, exchange evenly, that type of a thing. Like you have all that down. You're just basically saying like, I'm not going to add fluffy, unnecessary stuff to, you know, our communication. But, you know, you're very respectful of people's times. You're always on time. All of that kind of stuff. Like that's important. And you do stick to that.
And we're only talking about emails at this point too. There's also the other thing of like, you know, when you're communicating with somebody verbally and the way that you communicate with someone verbally. And I just fully believe in authenticity. And even if you don't act the way you're quote unquote supposed to in business, I think that just being yourself will get more people's respect, even if that person is a higher up than you in your business or in your company or whatever it is. I try to be as respectful as I can for people's time. Lauren knows I hate being late. It literally drives me insane. It gives me like an anxiety attack to be late, like stresses me out because like when I was raised by my mom, every clock was a different time between 5 to 10 minutes ahead. So if you showed up on time, you know that you were about between 5 to 10 minutes early. So when it comes down to being respectful of people's time, all of that stuff, there's also just like, I feel like, you know, when you get to a certain point in business, like if you're a CEO of a company, you kind of just want to be around more real people because there's so many ass kissers in your company, right? Like, and I think that sometimes when you are more real and very respectful, people just connect with that and they notice a part of themselves in it as well. I noticed that the most CEOs or some of the most successful people that I know are not like businessy type people, right? They don't speak businessy. It's kind of like the people that have managers above them are the ones that have to be businessy so that the managers don't judge them or get mad at them for it. But once you get to a certain level of like the C-suite of companies, usually they're not businessy at all. They're usually the least businessy out of the entire company, right? Like they do whatever the hell they want. They talk however they want because they know that they can be themselves because nobody's going to fire them. So I don't know. It's just an interesting thing to think about as far as like who you actually truly are and who you want to be and show up for other people.
Yep. All right. So next one is, how do you put all of this mindset work into practice? I listen to podcasts, yours every morning. I make lists of things to do. I read all the mindset books, but it feels like I'm constantly preparing to make a change, but it seems overwhelming with all the things I need to do. How do you take the first step?
Stop listening, stop reading, stop learning. I had an episode years ago that was called what was it called? Stop studying, start training. I think it was something along those lines where it's just like, sometimes we trick ourselves to think that we're being productive when in reality, we are learning too much, right? Like besides like a couple parts of books, I haven't read a book in a couple years. And the reason why is because not because I don't need to read books, but because they're not at this point in my life serving me for what it is I'm trying to do. And there was a point that I realized that I was reading too much and I was watching too much and learning too much and I wasn't taking enough action. And a lot of times I think a lot of people will mask their fear. For instance, they'll mask their fear of rejection or their fear of failure with, I'm not ready yet, so I need to keep learning. So then what they do is they don't take any action. Mm-hmm. So they tell themselves, I need to read another book. I need to go get another degree, another certification, another thing to put up on the wall that tells me that I'm good enough. When in reality, you don't need to do any of that stuff anymore. You don't need to read any more books. You don't need to listen to any more podcasts. You don't need to do any of that stuff. What you need to do is you just need to get your butt up in the morning and start working as hard as you possibly can for whatever it is that you want. Yeah. So there's a point where you have to ask yourself, am I just wasting my time learning at this point when I should be taking action? Mm-hmm. And, I know I know some people that make crazy amounts of money that are ex-cons. They never went to college. They never graduated high school, but they have hardcore work ethic. They learn what they need to learn. They get around the right people, and then they work harder than anybody else. And I have one person specific. I'm not going to say who it is, but he's an ex-con. He makes probably $100 million a year. He didn't graduate high school, but he doesn't sit around reading books all day. He takes action. He's up. You see him every single day on his Instagram stories, 5 a.m. at the gym, not sleeping in, 5 a.m. at the gym. Then he goes to work and, people are like, oh man, I love to have his life with the Rolls Royce and with the crazy house in LA and with the private jet and all of those things. But sometimes you have to just go, do I need to stop reading? Do I need to stop, listening to podcasts? Do I need to stop watching YouTube motivational speeches? And do I just need to actually take action?
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to go screw up in order to figure out how to actually do things right. I had, in my course, my group in my course where I teach people how to grow coaching businesses, I had somebody say, yesterday inside of the Facebook group, she said, how do we deal with a no sale that it comes in? Cause I'm starting to feel down about myself about this no sale I just had. And I said, you have to realize, like, I've had more no sales in my career of selling stuff than I've had sales. Mm-hmm. LeBron James has missed more shots than he's made. If you're a incredible basketball player, you miss 55% of your shots. If you're like the best, you miss 55%, which means you miss more than you make. If you're one of the best baseball players in the world, you strike out 70 to 75% of the time that you're at bat, right? Like, you have to realize you have to miss shots. You have to screw up in order to make shots. Yeah. And it's like Wayne Gretzky says, you'll miss 100% of shots you don't take. If you're sitting around and learning too much at this point, you're just not taking shots. You're watching film, right? Like, the best basketball players and, the best basketball players watch film. They watch every single game. They learn, they get better. But if you're not going out on the court, you're basically just watching film all the time, and you can't get better just by watching film. It's a required part of becoming successful, but you got to get on the court. You got to screw up. You got to learn how to dribble. You got to miss some shots in order to make sure you get your shots right. So what I would say is stop learning, cut it out for the next 2 months, and then just take hardcore action towards whatever it is you need to do.
Yeah. Yes.
You like that?
I like that.
You have anything to add to that?
I don't think I have anything different. I mean, really, it's like sometimes I feel like the lessons and things that I've learned have taken on a whole new meaning once I've actually had to put them into practice.
Right.
Like, when I'm actually faced with a challenge, then it's like I reach into my toolbox and I'm like, this is when I really need to pull out this. And before, reading it or hearing about it, it all sounds great. But until you're actually faced with having to use those tools, it's just going to be an idea that's all cool and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you'll have a much deeper understanding of everything you're learning once you're putting it into practice. It means so much more. Yeah, you just have to jump in.
Love it.
All right, what's next? Okay. Hey, Rob. Okay, so
hey.
I run a production company creating content for people and businesses. I find myself procrastinating due to constant doubts of my age, and if all of this time I'm putting into work will be worth it in the long shot. I'm 20. I of course know that it will be worth it, but that doesn't stop my mentality from dragging me to a halt. Do you have any practices I should adopt in order to combat these thoughts that destroy my productivity?
Well, it's more self-doubt is all that it really is, which everybody has self-doubt. Your self-doubt happens to be in your age, right? So when I started my first business in Cutco, I was 20. When I first started interviewing people for the position, I was 20 years old. And I was interviewing people 20, 25, 30, 40, sometimes 60 years old. And I remember people would come in and they'd go through an interview and they'd be interviewed with me and they'd be a good fit. And they'd be like, hey, I just have a problem with the fact that you're 20 years or 40 years younger than me and you're going to be my trainer. And this was 2006, 2007, 2008. So LeBron James was like 21, 22 at the time, right? So, but he was still pretty much the best basketball player that was out there. Mm-hmm. And so people came in and they were like, I have a problem with the fact that I'm going to be learning from you and you're so much younger than me. I don't know if you have experience. And I said, okay. Well, I have a question for you. If LeBron James came in here right now, he's 22 years old, and said, hey, Lauren, I want to teach you how to play basketball, would you go, you're not old enough? I only learn from people that are my age. And they're like, no, of course not. And they're like, why? I asked them why. And they're like, well, because he's the best basketball player in the world. And I would look him dead in the eyes and I'd say, yeah, I'm one of the best in the world too. So do you want to work with me or not? Because I really don't care. Mm-hmm. And when you're that real with people, people are like, oh shit, this person's like people, you can tell when someone's serious about something. So I don't care what somebody does at 20 years old, but there's some people that I know that are 20 years old that are crushing it as CEOs at their own companies. And they have, I know somebody who's 20 years old and they have like 20 employees, but nobody looks at them and like, oh no, I'm not going to work with them because they're younger than me. Mm-hmm. So I think it comes down to confidence more than anything else of how to actually believe in yourself. When I started this podcast, I was 28 years old. And I thought to myself, like, who's going to want to get life advice and mindset advice from a 28-year-old? right? What 40, 45, 50, 60-year-old would want to listen to a 28-year-old? Mm-hmm. And it kept me from making the podcast for about 5 months. And then I was just like, I'm going to do it. And if somebody wants to listen to me, they can. Now I'm 34 years old, but if you look at the demographics of this, of who listens to this, my largest age group is 25 to 44. Like 60% of people who listen to this podcast are 25 to 44, which means there's people that are 10 years older than me that are listening to this podcast, right? There's also people that I have people that are in groups and courses that I've done, and they're 50, 60, 70 years old, and they've gotten something from it. But what I think it comes down to is how humble somebody is to go, age is nothing but a number, because you could be 20 years old and have 4 years of experience at something, 5 years of experience at something. Mm-hmm. My business partner that I have that we're making the t-shirt company, he was a millionaire by 17 years old. You're going to go, oh no, I don't want to learn from a 17-year-old on how to make money when you have $500 in the bank and he's got $1 million. Mm-hmm. Or are you going to put yourself and be humble and go, yeah, maybe I should put my tail between my legs and learn from this person. It could be about making money. It could be business. It could be spirituality. It could be anything that you can learn from someone. So, we've all got issues where we're holding ourselves back, and yours is just disguised. Your insecurities are hiding themselves in not being old enough, mm-hmm. right? We've all got our insecurities in different ways. Sometimes it's not pretty enough, not smart enough, not old enough. Whatever it is, mm-hmm. we all disguise it in some sort of way. And this one just happens to be age. So age doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how old you are. Just go out there and put the work in. And, the one thing that I remember my boss telling me when I was younger is he said, just outwork everybody. Because if you work harder than anybody else, you'll get everyone's respect. And I was like, all right, cool. So I just tried to outwork every single person I could, because people respect somebody who work really hard. Like, people respect somebody who works really hard, because mm-hmm. most people can't drive themselves to do it. So that alone shows that you're different than the average person. Mm-hmm. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because it happens on both sides of the spectrum. I've talked to people who are, in their 60s and 70s, and they're like, why would anybody listen to me? I'm just this old person.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's like you said, it's just an idea that people have come up with in their own head based on, the fear or their self-doubt, whatever limiting belief it is that they're holding. But we talked about this earlier too, about, if you were to ask yourself, who out there needs my help? And like, there's people who really need what it is that you have to offer. Mm-hmm. And like with you, for instance, you were having some doubts about starting the podcast because Tony Robbins, like, he's out there right. killing it, been doing it for years. Why is there space for Rob Dial? Mm-hmm. And so, for anybody who's listening to this, who's been impacted by the podcast or anything that you've done, they wouldn't have been if you would have continued down that thought process.
Yep.
So, there's people out there that really need what you have to offer, and mm-hmm. your limiting beliefs are holding them back from getting your help.
Which means you're being selfish. Yeah. Because you have value that you could give the world, but you're too busy thinking about yourself and your own insecurities to not give it to them.
Right.
Which means you're selfish.
Well, it's also just temporary discomfort, right? Because mm-hmm. you're going to start to do something and it's going to become second nature, and you will have, crossed that bridge and it'll become easier. I mean, there was a point in time where you hated talking on camera and you didn't necessarily like doing it, and it was awkward and weird, but right. that's not the case anymore.
I know. Now we got 2 cameras looking at us right now.
So yeah, it's also just temporary discomfort that you will get past.
Yeah.
It's well worth it for all the people that you're going to end up helping in the long run.
Nobody likes talking in front of camera when they first do.
I'm sure I'm going to hate this when I see it.
100%. I'm not even going to let you look at it because you're going to hate it so much. The way it sounds,
the way it looks, but it's like, whatever.
You just got to let it happen.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Let's do one more. Pick the best. What's the best one that you have?
Oh, well, this is the last one, and it's the best one.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so if this was your last day on Earth, what food would you eat and why?
Oh, you already know the answer to this one. That's the best part. What would I have? What 2 meals would I have, and where would they be? That's
so funny that you said 2, because there's 2 that it would be.
Right.
And I don't know which one, if you had to pick one.
I couldn't pick one. So you got to tell us what 2 there would be.
So both of them are in Italy.
Yep.
One is in Florence and one is in Rome.
Yep.
So there's the best pizza on the planet at a place called El Pizziolo. Mm-hmm. And It's amazing.
And that's in Florence.
That's in Florence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for sure one of them.
I would get the Diavola, is what it is called.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It has meat on it. It has dairy. It has gluten. It
I
has all of it.
All of the things that I don't eat, it has. It has. I don't eat gluten. It has gluten. I don't eat dairy. It has dairy. I don't eat meat. It has meat. But if it's my last day on Earth, I would just have to do it.
Yeah. The other one is the carbonara, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Rome.
Mm-hmm. Come on, you got it.
Oh no, I know the name of it.
Da
Enzo,
yes. So if you guys ever go to Florence or Rome, you have to go. If you're in Rome, it's a place called Da Enzo, D-A space E-N-Z-O. It is the best food, hands down, I've ever had in my entire life. We've eaten all over the world. And their carbonara is like mind-blowingly
magical.
Great. It's insane how good it is. Like, I did not know food. It's funny because when you get to Italy, you don't know how that food could be so good. And then when you get to D'Enzo, you didn't know that it could be even better. Mm-hmm. And so we've been there. I mean, we've been to Rome probably 7 times together. How many times do you think we've eaten at D'Enzo?
I don't know how many times we've eaten there.
We've eaten there multiple nights in a row.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because it's worth it. I mean, it's the kind of place where you wait outside for potentially an hour to like, we've waited over an hour. Yeah. To get in there. And we are happy to wait every single time because it is so worth it.
Yep.
Oh, it's amazing.
And then the other place is called Il Pizzaiolo. Pizzaiolo. And that's in Florence. And we always get the Diavola. Mm-hmm. And it's hands down the best pizza ever.
It's got that really fresh basil on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a whole different story because basil in Italy is like everything else in Italy. It's just amazing.
Yep. And every time, like, we've literally gone and taken trips to Rome and Florence just to eat at those 2 places. Mm-hmm. So those would be the 2 places. If it was my last day on Earth, I would start in Rome. I would wake up. Oh, here we go.
There's another one. I just thought about this.
You already know the answer to this one, too.
Yeah.
We would wake up in Rome, and then what would I do?
A Meccanismo.
I would get a Meccanismo.
A cappuccino and a croissant.
For sure. There's a place called Meccanismo that is in Trastevere, which is in Rome. It's a neighborhood in Rome. I would get 100% a cappuccino, and then I would get 2 croissants. I would get their croissants. Then I guess if we're already there, we'd have to have lunch there. So it'd probably be lunch at D'Enzo. We'd go and get the carbonara. Then we'd have to take the train, the speed train, an hour and a half north to Florence. Then I would have the Diavola pizza at Pizzaiolo.
Yep.
And then I would die happy.
Yep.
Because that would be the best day of food ever.
Sure. Well, I'm so hungry and now I'm just dreaming.
Yeah. And it's, almost August. Bless you. It's
sorry.
It's going to be one more, everybody.
I think we're good.
Okay. It's basically 3 every single time.
Usually.
So yeah, it's August. We were supposed to be in Italy for a month, all of April, until COVID thing hit. And then we're like, all right, well, if we can't go in April, I guess we'll go in October. Don't know if that's going to be happening either. So our 2 months that we usually travel to Rome doesn't look like it's happening. So
we'll go. We're gonna have to. The second that we're able to go back to Italy,
we'll be back.
Rob and Lauren will be on the plane.
That's for sure. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you want to learn even more about mastering your mind, click right here and watch this video as well. How do you get out of your head during this pandemic? What are the top 3 books that you would recommend? Do you believe in aliens is the next question. You want me to be honest with you?